What's up, everybody? How are you? Happy Wednesday. A rainy Wednesday, but it's a Wednesday, and nonetheless, we're still here, and God is good, and we're so happy for that. I just wanted to say, happy Wednesday to everybody. We got an exciting show today. Um, so much is going on. We have a special guest. We'll get into her and what she's doing. She's making power moves and doing her thing. There's so much. Oh, I have to mute my own self. Ain't that something? So everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host, Kevin Branzetti. Kevin, how are you doing on
Doing
this
well,
rate?
Bill. Doing well, Bill. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, Kevin, we got so much to talk about. We have the stuff that Miss Monroe is doing. We're going to definitely get into that. And I think that's very important. And I'm sure I would love to get your take on that due to the fact that, of course, we're former law enforcement. So I want to definitely get your take on that. I applaud everything she's doing. But then, we want to talk about the George Floyd stuff that's going on right now in the trial. I got issues with the trial because they're making it about George Floyd right now, and they're not um, this creep. But we definitely will ask Pamela her take on that and many more. But without further ado, everybody, if you're on Facebook, share it. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to it, like it. This is what we do right now. Hello, everybody that's chiming in and saying hello. We appreciate you. If you want to know how to share it from the Facebook page, if you're my Facebook friend, which you are, or Real Talk Chronicles, just all you got to do is go into the live and push the share button, and it'll go to your page. If you're on YouTube, you know how to subscribe to it and push that thumb button. And without further ado, I want to invite somebody, introduce her. She is doing a lot of things, a lot of powerful things right now. Thanks to Gina, who is taking care of some other personal business. But Gina, you got to come back. So Gina said to me, she said, Bill, I got a powerful, dynamic sister that's doing her thing, and her sister friend. And she said, I think she would be great to be a part of the show. So I said, okay. And she sent me a little bit of brief stuff on her. And without further ado, we have to give her Real Talk Chronicles love, clap her in, give us some thumbs, some hearts, whatever. Miss Pamela Monroe. Hello, Pamela. How are you? You have to unmute yourself. Yes.
Yes, that would be helpful. Hello.
Absolutely.
Good evening, everybody out there in Facebook land and YouTube and wherever else you're broadcasting from. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you really for being here. And, to find out exactly what you're doing. So please just tell the listeners, the Real Talk Chronicle listeners, who you are. And, we'll get into what you're actually doing now, but just give us a brief synopsis of who you are and what you're doing, please.
Sure. So, as you stated, my name is Pamela Monroe. I am originally from Connecticut. I've been in New York maybe about 24 years now. I moved here to pursue an acting career and have found myself an activist for police accountability. I am a member of the New York City campaign for an elected civilian review board, an ECRB.
Right.
And I'll just state a little bit. I'll just say, without getting into the meat of it, we're a campaign. We're an open campaign of multi-racial, multi-generational, multi-cultural New Yorkers who have written a piece of legislation. And we found a city council sponsor to sponsor that legislation. And it was recently introduced in a stated meeting last week.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you. Appreciate your work that you're doing. And I'm sure we have a lot to talk about in lieu of law enforcement and crime in New York City and things of that magnitude. Also, if you don't know, Kevin is former law enforcement. He still works in some kind of division with law enforcement. I'm retired, but I've taken it upon myself to speak out and do a lot of mentoring and Real Talk Chronicles aspect, and I go around different schools and colleges, and I speak on how to interact with law enforcement. Because as a man of color, I personally didn't like what I've seen. Kevin and I discuss this all the time. I feel that there are a lot of excuses, and it's not a lot of equality for people of color. And Kevin and I sometimes we get into it on statistics, but the bottom line is we don't have a problem sitting at the table and listening, and that's why Kevin is here. And because we want more officers that are not of color to come forward and have these conversations, because if you're going to just sit back and say about, oh, blue this and blue that, then you're not understanding about black or brown. So thank you, Pamela, for being here. I just want to shout out everybody that's in here tonight. I see you, Will Allen in the building. Gina is in the building. She said, what's up to her sister?
Yeah.
Colin is in the building. So shout out everybody that's chiming in. Pearline, Wayne, what's up, everybody? I see you all in the building. Thank you for being here. So let me ask you first, Pamela, what got you involved into that activist role and what you're doing now?
What a great way to start. As I said, I moved to New York to be an actor, to pursue acting. This was not on my agenda. However, I could only post so many videos of Black and brown people handcuffed, unarmed, being abused, being killed before I said, I felt helpless, I can't keep posting these videos. It's very traumatic just watching it. And as we watch this trial, we see how traumatic it is to watch abuse. And I said, what are you going to do about it? You're going to keep posting videos? What are you going to do about it? And I'm a person who, if you want something done, I know I have to do it.
Understood.
I am that person. So I started looking at ways I could get involved. And I actually went to a Shaun King event that was in New York City about 4 years ago. And while it was great to have Shaun King here, he wasn't giving the audience any actionables at that time. At that time, this was 4 years ago, he was talking about the history of progression and how when the country make steps forward, we step back. And he was kind of giving us a lecture. And I was like, what can I do? And someone stood up in the audience at the end and had a pamphlet and said, I'm with a campaign that has written legislation to give power to the people to hold police accountable. And I was like, I need to find him after this. And I found him. And the next Saturday I was in my first meeting, and I've been involved since.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. What have you seen that has I'm trying to find the right word, adjective, infuriate you, annoy you, that, like you said, you went to the Shaun thing, so it's already inside you that you wanted to be involved in change. But and I'm sure a lot of times people that take on an activist role, change and being involved is not just one thing. I'm sure there's other things that we may want to put our hand on, but there's just certain things that really resonate and make us stay at it. You know what I'm saying? Like want to get involved. So you were saying about what you saw within law enforcement, and elaborate a little bit more for me and Kevin and myself, that what it was that because Kevin and I, like I said, we talk statistics, and Kevin is one that'll say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, that media doesn't show white individuals getting hurt or shot with law enforcement. And statistically, he had just said, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, that there are more white individuals that have gotten shot by law enforcement, correct?
Yes, every year, unarmed and armed. More white men are shot and killed by police than black men. Now, I'll always tell you it's disproportionate to statistics of numbers, the amount of black men, white men in the country. And I will also tell you, I do believe, and we talked about this last week, Bill, that, Bill and I did a cross-country trip and we did speeding in every state. There is clearly more of a chance of Bill getting himself hurt than me.
Absolutely.
I have no bones about it. I just think we we push it more in the media and make it seem like it feels like, looking at people, it's like, to me as a cop, as a retired NYPD and still in law enforcement, it feels like the public sees all cops in that light. And I know from my career, from Bill's career, I've never seen a man cuffed and hit. I've never seen a man punished, stomped on. I've never seen a guy had his head stomped on. I've never been a part of that, never worked with people like that. And I got my hands dirty on the street. I wasn't, afraid of being out there. So it's a tough thing to watch. Do I think, this gentleman in Minneapolis killed George Floyd? Yeah, I do. I'm not, there were incidents I will say, I will defend the cops. In their instance, I'm going to say we were wrong and we need to be better. But I do feel in general, we've exploded this into the point of both sides there's a tinderbox, and both sides have a lot of emotions. And I don't think we're working towards middle ground. I think we're working more towards separation.
What's your take on that, Pamela?
Whew. So
that's right. This is real talk. You get thrown right into the fire on this.
Yeah. So to address the more white people being shot and harmed by police, that makes sense. There are more white people in this country. So yes, there would be more white people, but like he said, it's disproportionate. The amount of Black people in this country at the rate of which we are being killed and maimed is outrageous and must stop. And I feel like, any civil rights, whether you're, Black, white, or Asian or whatever, you're right. You're supposed to be brought to justice. It is not up to the police to be the arbitrator of justice in the street. And in Black civil rights in this country, anytime we fight for civil rights, everybody else benefits. So people need to be concerned about this. And, we did have a white woman had a medical, I can't call her name right now, in New York. I want to say it's Deborah or Suzanne, I can't recall, but she had she was having a mental crisis, and the police showed up and she was killed. And, people should be concerned. If Black people are outraged, there's a reason for it. And they should be outraged. They should want to know, why are Black people outraged? And so as far as Kevin's statement that he feels like there's more division because, Blue Lives Matter is, heated about it, and Black Lives Matter is heated about it. I feel like this. Police officers have a very hard job. No one can discredit that. And I feel like, as opposed to police officers feeling separated from the movement, this is a time for them to advocate for themselves, to say, we don't have, because at the end of the day, police officers are citizens just like me. They are not above the law. But I think somewhere police are told that they are on this higher status. I mean, we've heard police fighting, they don't get paid enough for the job they do, so they're just as, they're like the everyday person, but I feel like police want to believe that they're not, but they are our brothers and sisters too, and if they don't have the tools that they need to do their jobs professionally and correctly, they should advocate. They should take this time in this country right now, instead of saying, Blue Lives Matter, and they should take this time to advocate for themselves and say, our job is freaking hard. It is fucking hard. And you don't know what we go through. So tell us, what do you need so that you can do your job right? Why do you feel that when you have a man that you had to chase down and now he's in handcuffs, why do you feel the need to you now have to kick him, knee him, and do all these things when he's handcuffed. What about your job makes you so frustrated that you have to turn to these tactics? What are you not getting from your employer that you have to act outside yourself? Because I know cops didn't come into this profession to act outside themselves. They came to do a service.
Let me ask you a question, and I'm going to say this from being inside. Do you really feel some cops didn't come on this job to do a service or not do a disservice?
Oh, we know there are some cops, who, what is that mentality, when you get some power, and it's a psychological thing, right? Maybe in high school, they weren't the popular guy or whatever. Maybe,
right.
Maybe their father was stomping their ass when they was an adolescent, so now they're going to stomp somebody's ass. I mean, we know that violence begets more violence.
And the only reason why I said that is because when you said, after a pursuit and you get somebody and even you get him in cuffs and you still kick him, I think for the punk and the person that shouldn't be a police officer, those emotions, especially when he sees that skin tone that's different. You understand what I'm saying? That's where a lot of things change. So maybe, Kevin and I chasing the guy down, which we've done, we fought, we've done it all together in our tenure when we worked together. But it wasn't personal. Mm-hmm. For as active as we were, it was never personal to me. It can get personal if you spit in my face or something like that, then I don't care who's watching. You know what I'm saying? But you're not going to have cuffs on. You understand what I'm trying to say? So there's a different mentality that goes. Now, I know a lot of times emotions play, where cops have I'm above the law mentality. And to a certain degree, I say this, all jobs have perks. Because I know this might be sometimes I may play a devil's advocate with our conversation tonight, because I knew coming home so I'll give you the devil's advocate aspect. They always wanted law enforcement to live in the city. I still live in the city, the 5 boroughs, right? I never moved to cop land and things of that magnitude, as we call it, and stuff like that. I'm blessed now to have dual residency, but I still have my dwelling in New York City. With that being said, I could come home late and work at night. There isn't any parking in New York. You want me in New York City. You want me, I'm still ear to the street, ear to the community. I may come home and I may park near the pump. But now you want to hold me and tell me that, oh, wait a minute, you're parking near the pump. Or you're parking in a New York. I throw my plaque up somewhere and I'll park it at something that says no standing or no parking anytime. But now you want me to look around a parking space with you all of a sudden. And I never forget, I had a guy tell me that one time. He said, "Yo, Bill." I said, "What's up?" He said, "Yo, I want to be like you." I said, "What do you want to be? What do you mean you want to be like me?" He says, "Well, I want to be able to park at the pump." I said, "You can park at the pump, right?" So he says, "No, but if I park at the pump, you'll get a ticket." I said, "Okay, well, you'll get a ticket." But you didn't ask me, could you park at the pump? You asked me, you said, "I want to park at the pump." I said, "You can park at the pump." He says, "Well, I don't want to get a ticket." He says, "You don't get a ticket." I said, "Well, then take the test and become a police officer and put your life on the line," because that's what I do. You understand what I'm saying? So I will always defend a law enforcement officer like that, because you can't have your cake and eat it too. I always say that. You can't have us in the city, but then you don't want us to do certain things. I can't go to your job and tell your perks like a doctor or a nurse. They're going to wear scrubs. They're going to have certain medical rights and privileges that we unbeknown to us. Like in corporate America, there's certain things that people want to know. The only problem I have with a lot of things, sometimes people want to take law enforcement perks away from them. Now, don't get me wrong, parking and blocking bus stops where old ladies. Now, I used to drive the bus, so I know what it's like to park in the bus lane, and elderly people want to get in things. So when I was law enforcement, I made cars move out the bus stop because I knew what it was like. And bus drivers' licenses are their money. So I understand all these things. But the one thing that I always feel that, and I'm just using this example of perks with privileges and above the law, if we're going to use that terminology, because the bottom line is, I never thought I was above the law because I never acted out above the law. You understand what I'm saying? Like I wasn't walking around showing my gun in the street. And I've had examples of that, walking with a white officer going someplace to court. And he might even be listening in if he is now. He'll contest to this and say it's true. He can go where he can show his gun walking in the street, and I didn't have my gun showing in the street. But when we walk into court, the court officer doesn't stop him. White privilege, but stops me. And we're walking together, and I show my ID, and she wants to go through the whole script. And I'm like, whoa, okay. Like, so I get it. I get there's certain things that just don't work for us. But the bottom line is, we as people, and I always say this, I tell people all the time, if it wasn't for that Trump card that I have, and I hate to use that name, Kevin knows that Trump card that I have my ID in, what I'm referring to, I would be considered regular John Doe. And I know that. And that's why I do what I do. Shout out to everybody that's listening. And this is Real Talk Chronicles. I got Kevin Branzetti in the building, my co-host. And we have a special guest, Pamela Monroe, in the building. And she is doing big things in the community. And of course, I'm your host, Bill Foster. If you like it, share it, subscribe to it on YouTube. I just want to read some comments. Jerome from YouTube, he said, are there any in-house assessments currently being done to monitor a cop's mental state to serve the communities? No, Kevin is saying no, not really. And let me just say this, Jerome, and Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, and Pamela, if you want to chime in on this. A lot of times it is considered weak for officer to say that he's having some kind of problems like that. There isn't any officer that I know to this day that will tell you he is having emotional problems, because the worst thing that an officer wants, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, he doesn't want his gun taken from him. That is like a man's private parts or a woman's private parts. You don't want, because that goes on your record and your mark for life.
There is an exception to that, Bill, and we have gotten better with it. It is when you're going through, going through a divorce. I gave my guns in. I signed my guns in. I sign them out every day when I go to work, and I sign them in at the end of the day and don't take them home. And there was a time that didn't exist within the police department. That option, right? The police department would physically take them from you and demand them and say, we don't think you're fit, you're having problems. So we have changed and we've improved with that, where there's absolutely no stigma on that right now. I guarantee you, every precinct in the city of New York today, there is a cop turning in his guns every single day. Everywhere I've worked, I've been a desk sergeant, right? I'm in charge. I've signed them in. You have to go in the back. You have to check out how many guns are there. There is always.
But we're talking about turning them in because they don't want to get jammed up, the ultimate jam up.
But you're also going through a bad mental state. You're going through divorces can be interesting.
Kevin, I'm agreeing with you on that. I'm agreeing with you. But what I'm trying to say is that you're turning
part protection. It's part protection so that your significant other doesn't make a bad accusation against you, and you're doing it for protection. But it's there. But Pam, I want to go back to your comment about it is time for cops to be out there speaking and taking charge of this. And that's kind of what Bill and I are doing. I mean, that's why we're out here. But for the average cop in uniform, they're not allowed. They're not allowed to speak. They're not allowed to be public advocates. They're not allowed to be politically involved. They're not. It's in the rule books. Done. So they're in a tough position.
But they have a union, and they can advocate within the union. The union is supposed to be there to service them.
That's not true. Yeah, no. It's true what you're saying, but it doesn't happen that way.
But then that's where the employees have to galvanize together and make this change. I mean, I feel like when this pandemic hit, something in my spirit said there's about to be a huge paradigm shift. And I had no idea, but my spirit told me this, and I was like, some things are going to happen. And this was just on the first week of lockdown. because I had never witnessed the lockdown where people all had to be in the house. I was like, this is huge. And there's going to be some really, I just knew in my spirit something big was happening. And so I feel like this is the time. If there was ever a time for us, for us to get this country where we want it, to be the country we want to be the fellow countrymen to each other, to really be patriots. If it was a time to get our shit together, it is right fucking now. People need to put these egos down. We watch a man because of his ego sit on this man's neck because civilians were telling him to stop, but he's not going to listen to civilians because he's a cop, because he is somehow better than these human beings standing on this sidewalk. It's time to stop this shit. And we need to hold each other accountable. Police officers need to jack each other up and be like, we've got to fix this. We've got to deal with this. I know how you're fucked up. I know. I see you drink. I see you fucking up your wife. I see you doing this. I see you doing that. We need to jack each other. It is time to love on each other. And I mean that in a very radical way. I am wearing a love t-shirt because I subscribe by love. It is time we love on each other in a radical way. I can't say that more profoundly. We've got to let these egos go. We've got to stop it.
What I agree with you, right? I'm on board, and I will tell you this because you don't see the inside of it, the locker rooms. There are plenty of occasions where cops are taking each other and calling each other out to task. You won't see it. You'll never know about it. You'll never know it exists. It happens all the time. It happens every single day across the country. It does happen. Does it happen to the extent you want it? Are we at perfection? Clearly, we're not even close. But it does happen. There are 800,000 of us. 800,000 we don't even know what the numbers are, in the billions of interactions with people. The numbers are ridiculous. It is being done. It is, as much as you don't see it, it is actually getting better, and I'll argue it's getting better. But there are some things that I'll argue for that. I'm a big fan of, we have to do this. What we're doing, we're going to talk, and you and I might get a couple of times even heated tonight with each other, but we're going to talk and we're going to work through it. We'll listen on and hear some things. What I'm seeing now, I'd have no problem with an elected civilian complaint review board. What I would like to see on it are guys like Bill and myself also on that board. You can't have one side who's never put their hands on the street, never touched a person. The average human being knowledge of police work is what they see on TV and read, and it is just not true. It's just not reality. There's such a hair of it, and you can't learn and become better at being a civilian complaint review board member without having a couple of ex-cops sitting there with you. You just can't.
I believe that we can have police involvement and have police come in and train and help us with policy review and all of that. But this is a board. The police have a lot of resources. The community, not so much. The police have internal affairs. They have, other inside, but there is nothing for the people. And we have tried it this way, where the police commissioner and it's appointed. We have tried it and it ain't working. So now it's time to do something radically different. And that's our opinion.
I will tell you, there's a consequence to it.
But before we go on to that, I wanted to say, when you said that, the police can't speak out and they can't be political. I mean, there are 12, what is it? The police officers that formed a suit together, was it the 12? It's like 12 black cops or black and brown cops in New York who have a suit together. I met their attorney early on in my work with this campaign. I think their office.
You're talking about Noble, Guardians,
You know what? I think I have it in here. There is, I think it's like 12 police officers that started a suit together.
I back in the days, I know it depends on they started a class action suit. You're talking about? I remember the too fat to frisk. I remember that. We also remember you're talking about the ones when they were talking about the quotas.
Yes, the 12 officers that were talking about the quotas. Yes.
Okay. And let me just say that, and you know, tonight I can see I'm going to wear two hats with this. I'm be playing devil's advocate and probably join you. I just want to reply to Colin's remark. He said parking at the hydrant should not be a perk for anyone. And when I say parking at the pump, I'm not talking about laying up on the pump. I'm talking about maybe 5 feet away from it, because the bottom line is we all know that FD will come and break your stuff up. But the bottom line, if I'm out here trying to make this world a better place and I come home and I'm tired, listen, I'm going to park there. So we can always go back and forth. But what you're talking about.
On the note of that, Bill, the 15 feet, which is the space, a fire truck can't fit there anyway.
Absolutely.
It parks next to it. The fire truck is going to park next to it. But I actually would not park in a pump. That's my.
But no, listen.
That's my line. Handicap pump.
You saw, you see, I said two different things though. I said pump. I said, and when I say
but no standing ones, I'm in.
No standing, no parking anytime. I mean, it is what it is. When I say parking at a pump, I'm not talking about literally parking at a pump and stuff like that. But I'm just saying, and closer than John and Jane Q Public could do. That's what I mean. So I just want everybody to know that I'm being very clear with that. I'm not talking about on the pump, because I understand that aspect of it. But so when we're talking about the people that made the complaint about, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Pamela, we were talking about people that made a complaint about quotas and stuff like that, parking tickets and things that magnitude. Is that the one?
The point I was trying to make is that these 12 officers came together, and so and they were outspoken, and they talked about what they saw as issues, and they formed a suit together. And so I think we have to stop making excuses. Well, police can't do this. We can do whatever the fuck we want to do. Okay, we can, and we need to start thinking that way. Enough with the we can't do. No, you can do what you want to do if you really want to do it. You can.
I will say this. Let me just interject, and I will say this. And Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong. And Pamela, I'm agreeing with you. I just want you to say I'm agreeing with you, but I'm going to give you the inside of law enforcement. No one will ever work with those officers again. And they're being out in the street. It will be a la Serpico. It will be a la like American Gangster, when he was working by himself and he was like, yo, this is so-and-so. I need backup. Ronnie, whatever his name was. I need backup. Oh, we don't have no officers present. Officers will show up. It's not that blatant, but no one will be their partners. So they did destroy their careers. I'm not now. When we talk about
who would want that career? Who would really want that kind of career?
When you sign up for 25 years or 20 years, depending on what it is, the bottom line is this is, and people fail to realize this. And a lot of times it's hard for Kevin and I, and I'll speak for myself right now. It's hard for civilians to understand this is a get along, a profession. The bottom line is you just can't go out here and ostracize yourself and think that you're going to have a wonderful career unless you start taking tests and moving up the ranks. But if you're a patrol officer or a detective in a unit and you really do something, now don't get me wrong, I've never witnessed anything because I didn't play that. You wasn't going to beat anybody of color. You wasn't going to beat anybody on my watch. I worked in organized crime. I worked in patrol. I worked in SNU with Kevin. I've worked in active stuff. So the likelihood of seeing somebody getting their ass kicked was very high in what we did. It was absolutely. I fought. I know, and I'm being honest. Like I fought, and I was in a unit where a guy wasn't trying to go to jail because he was already looking at 25 years. He was going in because he was already had kilos against his name. Investigation was already done. So in lieu of when I was doing patrol was totally different. When Kevin and I was doing Snoop, it was about felonies. You would get locked up. An extra charge was dropped on you if you were in 1,000 feet of a school. We don't even know if they still do that kind of nonsense, that good nonsense now. You understand what I'm saying? Go ahead, Kevin. I see you want to chime in.
So Pam, again, I'm with you on a lot of this, right? Like, I want to see change. Seeing these things disgusts me. Right? I don't like a cop mistreating somebody, a cop assaulting somebody, killing somebody, or being discourteous to somebody, or just doing bad police work. All of that bothers me. All of it. These things get to me. I'm trying to read a little bit on the side of the lawsuit, and that yes, it does. It's out there. Are there quotas? Are there summons quotas, arrest quotas when you're in certain units? Yeah, you have to produce, right? It's not. I never worked anywhere where the quota was anywhere
Kevin,
near terrible.
Kevin,
like
let me interject for a
easy.
second. Let me interject for 1 second, and I'll give it back to you. I'll give you the mic back to you. First and foremost, everybody, I don't know any job that doesn't have requirements to productivity.
Yeah.
2, Kevin, if we're going to change people, we have to change the mentality. You and I talked about this, I think either 2 weeks ago, about I don't know what you see from your white eyes, and you'll never understand what I see. You try to understand.
I have brown eyes, Bill.
Okay, brown eyes. but as a white officer and a white man, you will never understand what I see and feel.
Of course,
because the bottom line is that's where it all starts. And I always go back to the fact that we're not learning equality and I go back to the movie American History X when Ed Norton was sitting there with his father and they were showing how he became a racist. Like his father was just talking, about equal rights and white people weren't getting the jobs because affirmative action and stuff like that. So we need to get back to the parental side of this, and why are parents teaching their kids that blacks and brown people are not good people and they're not equal? That's the big problem, because no matter what we can do and all the great work that Pamela is doing and her organization are doing, it means nothing if the mentality is still David, whatever this dude Chauvin clown is people act like that.
Pamela, I have worked, I've worked for bad bosses, I've worked for good bosses, and I've worked with everything in between. Mm-hmm. And what I'm starting to see and feel is, instead of trying to do a better job of going after the bad ones, because they're there, they exist, that we're taking trying to do a systematic change to the police department, where it's, this new thing about the lawsuits where we're now liable, the chokehold, not the chokehold bill, the diaphragm law. What these laws, there are things that's going to happen. Guys like Bill and myself, if we were still working, there's no way we would do our job. No. I would stop working because I have now risked everything in my life, and it's not worth it. So there's a give and a take here that we're going one end too far. And I'll make the argument that that's one of the reasons that the homicides are so far up in the last year, is because cops are putting their hands in their pockets and they're not willing to take a chance of, I don't want to be perceived as the next person who did something wrong. I don't want to be charged. That diaphragm law, Bill and I, we broke it 100 times in our career, right? Like, if that law existed, I would have committed
that law. Can you
It's about, you can't, basically, I can't touch another man's diaphragm. And when you're fighting with somebody, like, that's not, there's no, like, I can't have a section of your body that's a no-go, right? Like, it just, I'm fighting to win, right? There's no, this is not me and Bill are squaring off in a dojo having a battle, and somebody's going to jump in because Bill hit me with a cheap shot, or I hit Bill with a low blow, and it's over. Yeah. Bill goes down on the street. It doesn't stop. Kevin goes down. So we don't fight to, with those kinds of rules, but I'm not looking to hurt or beat it. Like I told you, I never hit it. Well, I didn't tell you this part. I never put a stick to a man's head. I don't think I've ever put a stick to a man's body. Like, I didn't like using my stick. I like my pepper spray. I thought that was a real good maneuver. We wrestled people. Bill go high, I go low. People went to the ground. You got them cuffed. They got dirty. Everybody got a little bit of blood on them. Once they're cuffed, it's over. You bring them back. Done. We prefer people who put their hands behind their back when we ask them, but it happens. The diaphragm law makes it where that maneuver isn't acceptable. And there's a chance that I could twist the wrong way, or Bill twist the wrong way, and he's hitting the guy's diaphragm. And now Bill committed a misdemeanor. And so because he committed that misdemeanor, not only could Bill get arrested for it, but now he could be physically sued for it as well. I don't know how we can do that job. I don't know how, when somebody says, I'm not going.
They're not going.
And I don't care the size of them. I have had some of the hardest fights with the skinniest little, punks out there.
Yeah.
It is not an easy task. But what we're now asking cops to do, it's not. I don't know how it's going to be possible.
Hold that thought, Kevin. Pamela, I want to get your take on that. Kevin, I'm gonna let you finish that take, but I just want to read some comments. Gemma said, "I agree, but the consequences can be devastating to the officers taking a stand." Chuck, he was just on the show last week. Shout out to him. He was a supervisor in this. He said the union is for the status quo. Look at Pat Lynch. There was never a vote amongst the members of who they wish to support for the presidency. Absolutely. The delegates made their decision for the membership. And let me just make sure I can read this. Okay. For the membership. And where with Pat Lynch are going to New Jersey. Now, not Trump coming to New York, but him. Okay, hold on. Things are moving. I got to catch it. Bring it back. The presidency. The delegates made the decision for the membership. And where was Pat Lynch after going to New Jersey? Not Trump coming to New York, but him along with his delegation endorsing Trump because of his clarity support of Blue Lives Matters. Yet after the Capitol insurrection, Trump not calling in support for those officers at the Capitol of providing the National Guard. Where was Lynch outraged for Trump's action for those in blue? That's a very good point. Trump's in blue. For the actions of those at the Capitol, the union is not always a reflection of those who they represent. Absolutely. Another thing, John Mills, he was a high-ranking official with the police department. My man, I got to get him on the show. I hope you're feeling better, man. It's a subculture that you have to navigate. You as one cop cannot just come in and change as Serpico. Stephanie said, very interesting point on both ends, so much to consider. Stephanie said, I do think that the new law that allows cops to be sued is a good thing. It'll make them think 2 times. With that being said, it will make them think 2 times, and they may get killed in that thought process too. Like Kevin was saying, and Kevin and then Pamela, I want you to definitely chime in with that. What we did when we did it, you can't tell me in a fight how to kick your ass and how long I can kick your ass. You can't do that. And I'm a martial artist. I've been in martial arts over 30 years. What I will say is that once the cuffs are on, there's no more fighting. But you swing, and I'm going to do what I'm do. Kevin, like I said, and right now we probably would not, and I'm sure Chuck and John too, and any other law enforcement that is either listening in or ghost watching, we know that you cannot touch anybody. Like Will Allen is a martial artist in here. That there's just certain things, and if you don't want to be cuffed, man, woman, child, cat, dog, you can't be cuffed. It takes multiple people. I have not seen one person, martial artist, brute, whomever, can cuff one person by himself. It has not been done yet to this day. You need multiple people. So go ahead, Pamela. Go ahead.
So what I was going to say, I'm not in the streets. I've never done a ride along, but from what I've seen in videos, I get it. If someone is combative with you, I get it. But what I have seen, everything that I have seen that has led me to this point,
right.
Every video I have seen, I didn't see 2 people squaring it out. I've always seen a man handcuffed and a ton of cops rush the scene and jump on the pile and start getting it in. That's what I see.
And anytime that happens, I'm for firing, arresting. Like I'm not like once Bill said it. Once the man's cuffed, we're done. You see those videos, I see them. Like I said, they bother me. They disgust me. I want no part of them.
And that's where
the amount of arrests that are made in this country, the hundreds of thousands, where that doesn't happen. Hundreds of thousands. It doesn't happen.
Great. And that's great.
But so
it's too many.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the good thing about today's society is cameras are everywhere. Mm-hmm. Right? This is no more where yeah, and did it happen? Of course it happened back in the day, right? There's still police departments who like to cover up things, but back in the day it happened far, far more because nobody was there to witness it. So we just said he fell down the stairs twice, right? Like, you know, and the bad guy would be, the guy who got hurt would be like, they beat me up, and then he opened his mouth more and he got beat up again, right? Like, and that society's gone. Everything's on video. So to me, the thing that we should be working on is punishing those that are doing it and training those who are working better. And Bill and I talk about this a lot. We're not trained for hand-to-hand combat.
You're not.
Right? No. Cops get police academy, and that's it. And there's a little bit in the police academy, and never again. And think about this the real world sense, right? Bill told you for 30 years he's been practicing. If I stepped into the ring with him, I've practiced never. It's not a fair fight.
No, it's not.
Right? Bill's going to hand my head to me. That's what is expected of a cop every single day.
Well, y'all don't do something about that.
But that's so the movement of like defund the police, like Bill and I like, no, it's the opposite. Let's fund the police. Let's make them what we want. We want good, smart, strong cops. We want cops who can use their hands. And there are a lot of videos, and we've watched videos, Bill and I have watched, where the cop couldn't use his hands, and then it became the gun. Right? And any one of us would much rather have our son have a black eye and a bloody lip.
Yeah.
You're right. There are times we're going to hurt somebody, right? There are times, Bill's going to need to dislocate the guy's shoulder. I'm going to need to, punch him square in the chin. That's just part of it. But we're not giving cops the tools to fight people.
And that's the sad thing. And that's the pity. And that's where I'm saying, the law enforcement community, there needs to be a radical shift. I'm here for, I have to advocate for the community.
Absolutely.
And I want you to, but I want you to just hear us as well. That's.
I hear it. And the first thing I said when I got on here actually wasn't even about what I'm here to discuss. I said, I agree that the police have a fucked up, a hard fucking job. That was the first thing I said,
No, you did.
I thought it was hello, but and thank you everybody.
And because I care about humanity, I want police to be at the top of their game. I want America's police department to be so fierce. Like,
and
just
help us fight for it, Pamela.
Well, I gotta help my brothers and sisters who's getting their ass.
100%. You got to help both sides. That's my argument. We need to both.
But I would stand on the line for you guys if you guys were out there standing on the line for yourselves. Y'all got to stand up for yourselves, though. You guys got to stand with the people and be like, you know what? Or just stand for yourselves in numbers and be like, we need money.
Let me ask you a question, Pamela. When you say stand for yourselves, and I want you to understand, I'm totally agreeing with you when you say stand for yourself. So I always say that because a lot of times when I've done talk shows and radio shows, I get shot at verbally, not figuratively, because when they hear retired detective, they think I'm just toe blue. And Kevin and I, we even go back and forth like, yo, I ain't blue, I'm black first. And he's like, well, I'm bleed blue. And, we had that friendly, a love banter. I just want to read what John Mills said in lieu of what we were talking about. He says, no such thing as a fair fight. It's survival. Once the cuffs are on, it's over. Absolutely, John. So what I want to ask you, Pamela, I'm in total agreement with Kevin. If you have a board of people that have never, like a non-martial artist can never tell me what a martial artist is, or how to implement a move, or what's tactically right or wrong. So what I'm trying to find out is, how does civilians tell us what's right and what's wrong? I mean, do we go before the cuffs, after the cuffs? After the cuffs is an absolute. Before the cuffs, it's discrepancy. It's give or take. But let me ask you this, Pamela, and this is a specific question that I am asking, and this is real talk. So everybody, of course, this is real talk. This is what we do. So you can chime in and say what you feel, of course, as you should. What is the review board going to do? How are you going to tell? What is your criteria? What are y'all looking at, and what are you going to tell? How are civilians going to tell police how to be police officers?
I don't think civilians want to tell police how to be police officers. Civilians want to hold police who are abusive accountable.
Got you.
So,
and what do you deem abusive? Because that's a big, beautiful thing right there.
Well, we would have investigators just like they have investigators now. So you would have to investigate the situation. You would have to review evidence. And if it's deemed abusive, I mean, police have policy, so we would have access to that policy. We would have to have something to compare our investigations to, so that we would know what is considered excessive force. We are aware that there must be force. The issue is the excessive force. And that's where the board would have to work with the police. And we're very clear and even now, any board is supposed to be working with the police to understand policy and create policy and working together. So it's not that we're saying we can't work with the police. That's not it at all. And it's not that we want to tell police what to do. It's about excessive force and abuse of force. And I often feel that some police, and I'm not going to make a blanket statement because obviously you two have made it clear that you do agree that there can be abuse of force. But there are some police who think that that's a phantom word. Misconduct, there's no such thing.
I agree with
you. Abuse of force, there's no such thing.
Yeah.
And that's not true.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like cops who never get checked on their excessive force eventually turn into a monster because they never got checked in a real way, and then it snowballs. It snowballs. No, getting a couple 2 days, that's not checking somebody on abuse of force, and I'm not saying I know what needs to happen. The board again would work with the community, work with, experts in the field. We can still work with those people in the field. Doesn't mean they have to be on the board, but we can still work with them and come to some understanding of things. So that's where we are. There are people on the board now. There are 3 people on the board, the existing CCRB, who were appointed by the police commissioner. So that's just 3. And they have a law enforcement background. But there are other people on the board who have JDs, who held public office, who've written public policy, who taught class. So the same people who train police can also be on the board if they were never in the uniform.
I don't know too many people who train police who weren't police, but I'll argue also the ones who did training for us, like in the academy, were not real police. They wore a uniform, but they weren't real police. Like they taught. Well, look, we learned this thing, and we'll laugh at this for 100 years. We learned a thing called speed cuffing in the academy, right? It's this thing of like you hold the cuffs a certain way and you can blast it on somebody's wrists simultaneously, instantly, and speed cuff them, right? It's taught in the academy. Everybody does it. You practice it. It never works on the street. It works on the street for somebody who puts their hands behind their back and says, "Yes, officer, I'll go." Mm-hmm. And then you could practice your speed cuffing and hit them quickly with the speed cuff move. Mm-hmm. And you cuffs spin around his wrist really fast and pretty. It doesn't work on a fighting. But that's what a trainer trains on, because she has never been out there and rolled in the mud. I think the civilian complaint review board should be mostly civilians. I'm not saying that like the board should be me, Bill, and a third cop. No. I'm saying if it's 3, 1 should be. Mm-hmm. So they can the other 2 can outvote them, right on a thing. Mm-hmm. But I think it gives that board a much better perspective on the investigations. And do you look? There's clearly different cops out there, and you want to get one who's done a little bit, has got a level head, and is willing to work. But if you just have one side who doesn't understand, coming up with the punishments and the decisions on who did wrong, I'll argue, and I could be wrong. It wouldn't be the first time during this broadcast that I'd be wrong, but it happens. I'll argue that it's not going to go well for the cops who are doing their job. And it is, again, we'll go back to the thing of the cuffed is easy. Mm-hmm. George Floyd, easy. I don't know too many cops who defend that.
I mean, but his officer was still right there.
Maybe a couple, but
the Officer Tao, he stood right there and defended it.
And he's held accountable too.
I'm sorry, who's Tao?
He was the Asian officer that was standing there that was really directing the kind of policing the crowd.
Yeah.
And let me just say this from a standpoint, Pamela, and I totally agree with you. I don't know what Kevin's take is on this. I'm sure I kind of have an idea what it is, but all the officers are accountable. I say this all the time, and this is why I have such a problem with certain officers that when they do certain things. You took an oath to protect and serve, right? That's the ultimate oath that you can take, right? But when you start letting your personal supersede your profession, that's when the problem starts to arise. Now, what we've learned from back to slavery and KKK and anything that you've seen up until this day, that it's the person's mentality that he knows how to work within the structure of law enforcement. So he knows how to use the job to abuse his privileges as a law enforcement officer. So like Kevin and I know, there's a thing that's called warn and admonish. That Kevin and I may utilize that a lot. And even if Kevin didn't do it for whatever reason, just because we had productivity that we had to do, or I didn't do it, it didn't mean he was a racist, and it didn't mean I was a sellout. You understand what I'm saying? But the bottom line is maybe warn and admonish can be done if we pull Pamela Monroe over and she says my cousin is Bill Forster or my husband is Kevin Branzetti or something like of that magnitude, or my best friend is law enforcement and he has a DEA card or a PBA card, and you're not cursing me out. You understand what I'm saying? Now it's like things like that. Okay, well, Pamela, Miss Monroe, have a nice day. You know what I'm saying? But if you talk about, oh, what did I do? You ain't got no right to pull me over. Wait a minute. I got a DEA card, a PBA card. Yeah, leave me alone. That's my boyfriend. That's my husband. But wait a minute. I still can take this card and still give you a ticket. You understand what I'm saying? So a lot of times, I think we as people, well, I always say this, a lot of people of color think they can mouth off like white people can. They can't. You understand what I'm saying? It's facts. They can't. It is like Kevin has the story that he always tells me how, what is that in reference when the guy called your ex-wife a bitch, and go ahead, tell that story real quick.
It was one of those road rage incidents, and whatever, they're battling it out, and he eventually pulls up next to us. I think he said, I'm going to punch you in your face, you white bitch. Right? Now, does that mean the guy's a racist to me? No. It's a racist comment, but doesn't mean he's a racist. He's clearly a jackass at the moment. You threatening a woman that you're going to get out and punch her is not the best maneuver in the world. But I look at that as not, doesn't mean the guy's racist or meant anything to do with race. It's just he threw the description in there as part of just the way people talk.
Now, it could be. Now, if he would have said that, if a white person would have said that to a black woman, we would have looked at it as racist. So, I mean, times have changed. A lot of things, Kevin had to make me sit back, and that was one of those, okay, like if I say, oh, I get cut off by a white dude or Asian or a Latin, and I use their ethnicity before I use a racial epithet, or a slur. You know what I'm saying? Does it mean I'm racist, or does it mean I'm just like you, so and so bastard? Something to think about. I don't know. Some people just say you bastard. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't have to always put the race in front of it. I think that's a beautiful place when we all are. I don't know if the three of us will be here when we see that world where it's just like, you're a bastard. And,
sometimes the person's just an asshole is my thing.
No, and I agree with that. But what's so funny, I think, in what Pamela was saying in speaking up, and I see more officers African American descent love this podcast. Watching it now. I've asked them to be on it. They will not be on it. Right? Latins, Caucasians, right, Kev? We've asked them every show. Come on. That's why Kevin is here with me, because he's probably one of the only ones that has taken the guts. And I laugh and I joke with him all the time. I said, you're losing friends every day you talk to me. You hang out with me. You understand what I'm saying?
But my reasoning, Pam, is very similar to yours. I was just tired of watching.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? I am tired of watching and seeing things get to me worse and worse. I'm waiting for the mayoral candidate, president, governor, any leader who's trying to bring people together. And my feeling is everybody picked a side. I'm for the blue. I'm for the community. And I'm like, can't we be for both?
We have to be. If we're going to be a unified country, we have to be. And I would love to stand if the police were to come out in mass numbers and be like, we need this. I'd be like, right on, brothers and sisters, get what you need so you can serve us properly. Yes, I would absolutely support that. And I do think we need the right mayor or the right police commissioner. And, we need the leadership that really is going to think radically, because you're right. The police can't do this by themselves. You need your commanding officers to set the tone, and if they're not setting the tone and they're still in this old, back in the day mentality, when my father was, on the force and this is how we did it, and still carrying forward this same, we're not going to get anywhere. And we're going to self-destruct. You know what? I'm going to say, when I was in high school, there was a song, and I think that was the beginning of me understanding that there was something about me that fought for justice. There was a song called Self-Destruct, was a rap song. Do you remember that? That was back when rap was conscious, right? We're headed for self-destruction. And I remember I was in a science fair, and typically in a science fair, you do something where you actually need a microscope. You actually, that's what a science fair is. Something in me decided I was going to do behavioral science. And I went and started interviewing young boys that I felt like were going wayward and, were headed towards self-destruction. Like, that song propelled me to reach out to my community and try to just talk about, where are you headed, and do you have people in your family who are incarcerated? I don't know, but we're headed for self-destruction. I say all that to say is that we're headed for self-destruction. And I think there are activists who would love to see police come out and demand of their leadership something better, of their union, of their police commissioner, of their commanding officers. And I bet you the city would stand and would be like, that's what we're talking about. That's unity. I know we would, because people have hearts, and watching this trial is just making me ache. It's just watching all those witnesses cry on the stand thinking about how they saw a man dying? Are we going to get to a place? Is that where we're heading? Where all we can do is stand on the curb and not do anything and feel like I can't do anything? All I could do is stand here and just cry over the matter. Is that what we really think is going to propel humanity? I mean, elevate humanity? We can't just.
I'm with you on that part. Like I and that's one of the toughest scenarios that exists, right? Because what is a civilian supposed to do, right? They see a cop doing that. There's nothing you can do. They did the right thing. They videotaped it. They got it out there. I don't know what a civilian does. And we see this week in New York City that Asian woman walking by the store and the guy beats her.
Disgusting. That was disgusting.
Stomping on it. And what does the security guard inside the store do?
Close the door. And that's what I'm afraid of. But you can't do this.
Where are we as people? I saw the guy on the train beating the other Asian guy, beating the pulp out of him, put him in the chokehold, knocked him unconscious, and stomped on him. And nobody on that train moved, a hand. And I'm sure Bill and I both looked at that video like, I wish I was on the train that day, right? Like that, I'm going down swinging, right? Like I'm not going to let another human being die in front of me, right? That's not going to happen.
And me either. I probably would have got shot that day if I would have saw this man just casually kneeling on this man's neck. Like I just,
yeah, and going to that one, like, and I'll be honest with you, like I don't know if I had a week on the job, how I would have reacted in that scenario. I can't tell you that, because when you're a puppy on this job, you're a puppy. You don't know what you're supposed to do. You're told from day one, shut up and do what the older cop says,
and don't get involved.
Right. The sergeant on the scene, that guy would have got dragged off of him. He would have been picked up, cuffed, and put in the back of the car. That wouldn't have happened. Like I would not have stood there and waited for him to decide I'm done. We can get off him. Like I know who I was as an older cop, but as a 22-year-old in the police department, I can't tell you that. I could sit here and lie to you and say, there's no way I would have let that happen. I would have knocked Bill on his ass and I might have stood there too. I might have, and this is one of the other things that Bill and I talk about, the importance of who you send rookies out with, right? Somebody put in the chat, asked about cops who get, have a long rap sheet of complaints and there's nothing done about them. From what I've seen, from my perspective, and Bill can contradict me on this, cops who have too many civilian complaints, they're grounded. They're not allowed out.
But that didn't happen to Pantaleo. He had what, 18?
Did he have 18?
He had 18, and so did Chauvin. Chauvin has 18.
That's a different police department.
Yeah.
I can't. And this is also one of the things, Pamela, that an argument comes out of us is we start to punish NYPD for what another police department did, or how another cop acted, or how another department handled things. In New York City last year, how many unarmed men were shot by cops and killed?
I can't tell you that answer.
0.
And maybe it has something to do with all of the protests, and maybe it has.
And the year before was the numbers low. Like it's not something that happens often here. It is actually a very rare event. I'm with you. One too many. Period. No ands, ifs, or buts. Mm-hmm. But we do start to, when another department has it, we punish here. Now I'm gonna go, when you're talking, I will Google and I will try to find out how many he had. But I know from my experience, and Bill and my, if you've seen it differently, cops who had several civilian complaints locked down, were not allowed out of the building. Yeah. They were in charge of answering phones, giving out radios. When we first all got to the 2-8, we knew one hothead who was there, right? And he was funny guy, nice guy. Everybody knew he was a hothead, not allowed out.
Yeah, well, that wasn't the case with Pantaleo.
Oh.
I mean, they released, it was a big deal. They someone from the CCRB released his records. It was all in the press. I mean, because that was when we had 50K, so it had to be leaked.
Let me just say this.
CRB,
let me just say this in lieu of, and I'm not even talking about Pantaleo. I'm not defending him at all, but it is probably one of the easiest things to get is a CCRB before you get some kind of recognition from the police department. Because you know what a CCRB is so easily, Pamela, is if I pull you over with whomever you're with, and I say, Miss, give me a license registration. And you say, what did I do? I said, Miss, can I have a license registration? And you said, what did I do? And I say, Miss, you made a left turn. You say, no, I didn't. And I say, Miss, can I have your license registration? And you'd be like, I didn't make the left turn. I said, Miss, give me your license registration. Give it to me. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Give me your thing. Well, you're going to talk about it with me. No, Miss, I'm not going to talk about it. Either give me a license registration or I'll lock you up. Oh, you da. You know what? I'm gonna make a report against you. That's a CCRB. I'm not justifying Pampaleo. I'm just saying that that's how easy, because I got one and I wasn't even the officer. My old partner was Italian, Paulie Barber, right? At one point, and we worked together because we were the last two men standing. When I'm saying just good officers working, because my partner had went to conditions, his partner had went to another unit. But when you start working with people, and we was like, well, let's work for each other, because tactically we knew each other was sound. So I say all that to say that we were at a job, and he gave the person, I think, a ticket or something like that. But the person didn't remember who he was, or didn't give him a ticket, whatever the case was. But remember that he was with a black officer. And whatever it was, I got a CCRB. And they said, oh, well, they knew it was a white, a white and black cop group. And we was like, unfounded, wanted to admonish, whatever the case may be. But the fact of it is,
can I give you this stat? Sure. The majority of CCRBs, and for the complainant, nothing happened to them. So there was no citation, there was no arrest, nothing. So what does that tell you? What it tells people who analyze these numbers is that people are being stopped, harassed, and then they have no grounds. So they're being disrespected when they're spoken to, and then so they file a complaint. And then they weren't arrested. And the majority of CCRBs, that is the outcome. There was no action taken against that complaint.
And you're teaching me something right now, because I did not know that. But what I will agree with you is that I do know, as a man of color, that, like I told, and I said this in the beginning, if it wasn't for my Trump card, my ID, and I hate to use that word,
we're gonna have to come up with a different phrase.
Yeah, I have to. My pass, get out of jail free card, that I would be treated differently, because the bottom line is, I see how white officers have spoken to people. I'm a firm believer. I tell Kevin all the time, I get it. I've seen a black officer, Lord rest his soul, he died of COVID, punch a white officer in the mouth because he just lost his mother. And I'm not condoning this by no means, what I'm saying, but he had just lost his mother, and he's waiting to pick up his wife from the subway station. And the cop was like, yo, get out the bus stop. And he said, yo, I'm on the job, whatever. And he's like, yo, I don't give a damn, He started giving them business. And they got out and they started square and argued. And he was like, yo, I'll arrest you. And he was like, yo, that's the worst thing another cop could say to another cop. It's like, I'll arrest you. So he was like, what? And then he punched him in his mouth. He destroyed his career. And I'm not condoning it. I'm not co-signing it. But that's when Kevin talks about how sometimes internally you're handling things. Because internally, when we go back into that precinct or that office that we have, I can say to Kevin, or Kevin can say to me, yo, what did you do out there? Why did you do that? You understand what I'm saying? I mean, things like that happen. Like, tactically, if Kevin and I think we're working with somebody who's a loose cannon or a cowboy, we don't have to work with him. We don't want to work with him. Mm-hmm. And like you and anybody else can see that the paperwork goes behind his name because he is a cowboy. And we don't want to work with that person. And we can say, like, yo, we can have an ideology of knowing officers that we can be like, see, something happened. Dude comes in, maybe, a little lumped up. Dude, right now, but it's him to prove and him to fight. You understand what I'm saying? Because years ago, Pamela, people get charges behind them. They want to get them charges up because those lawyers, those ADAs was not talking about, they wanted to take it. They were like, yo, take this community affairs, take this. I could drop this felony down to a misdemeanor and you can get maybe, anger management. And I'm just using that as an example, whatever the case may be. And it's a misdemeanor and it gets sealed later. But if you take it to trial, you'll get 1 to 3 or 3 to 6. And the first thing they're saying is, I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to do trial. So I'll pay the lawyer and I'll cop out. That's what they call it. We're saying we'll cop out to something, which is a crazy thing. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, my co-host, Kevin Branzetti, and we have Miss Pamela Monroe in the building. And she is just dropping science for us and giving us some ideology on what she thinks. Pamela, I'm going to read some comments, but I want to ask you. So I'm going to put this question in your ear right now before I read some comments. What are the things that you want to see officers do different? We understand about accountability, but what is the things that you, like if you were sitting right now with the police commissioner and you was talking to him, what are the things that you want to see done differently to penalize or structure different, like training, anything? I just want to know some things that you want to do differently. Let me read some of the comments right here. Mark is in the building. He says society will continue to push and what will be next won't be pretty. It is not a simple fix. Take Batman's utility belt away. He won't be effective to do 50% of the job. Absolutely. The public usually sees what's happening after majority activity has happened. No, I'm not saying kicking and beating someone or someone after the suspect has been cuffed. Not cool. But civilians should do more to understand the good and the bad in the community. Police should be able to do the jobs with the proper training. Why is this happening in the Black community? Uh, uh, Rhetorical. This is just in the opening for robotics, in my opinion. Stephanie said, and speaking of cops, why is it that some cops have a mile-long record of complaints and yet nothing happens? Because they're protected by higher authorities. Doji said, good question. And somebody who have Sharon says, good evening. We always have reevaluate what we have learned. I have worked for the city for 23 years. I have learned that you have to have an open mind. We have to be careful not to be desensitized. Sharon also says, I think this has happened to the police. The question is, how do we get people who deal with horrific events to maintain their humanity? Stephanie says, with the rise in shootings and gun crimes, what do you guys think can be done to change the trajectory? We'll get to that last question. So I just want to get back to the question that I asked you, Pamela. What do you, if you were sitting in front of the board, sitting with the PC, the mayor, whomever, what are the things that you would ask him to do or ask him to implement for change in what you're asking for now? Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
So just based on my conversation with you two tonight and based on my conversation or listening in the last time I watched you guys when my girl Gina was on, I would want the training to start at the top, with the commissioner. I would want the mayor to really, I would challenge the city to reimagine the police department. Right. Just like the community is trying to reimagine it. And I would say I've participated in just a couple of conversations with two former NYPD. Is Kevin still active? I'm not sure. You're retired, right?
I'm retired from NYPD. I work for another department. I can't.
Okay. So I've talked to two, members of who were members of NYPD. And I've heard that there's no real cultural training. There's no real historical training on police in this country. I would challenge the commissioner and the mayor to reimagine what an academy should look like. What kind of training should really happen? How many more hours should people really have? Hand-to-hand combat. Maybe people do need to learn martial arts. Like I said, I want to see our country be so fierce. And I don't think it's a fantasy. I believe that people can do whatever they put their minds to. You know, I want to see someone come on the leadership scene in law enforcement, knowing what you guys have to deal with and what you're lacking. These tools that you say you need so that you can do better and be stronger. You know, I want someone at the top to really come in and reimagine the police and what it should look like in a community. I mean, like really sit down and really throw what might be seen as outlandish, fantastical ideas on the wall and be like, but if it's going to make this country better, if it's going to make the citizens better, if it's going to make these police officers healthy and better and feel good about their jobs, then that's what I want them to do. I want everyone to work in a job that fully supports them, that their leaders support them and listens to them. I want leadership to listen to their officers when they say, you know, this is what happens to me when, you know, I try to tell somebody on the force, yo, don't do that. He handcuffed. This is what I'm not going to be protected on the street. Are they talking about this with leadership? You know, this is the stuff that needs to be addressed at the top. Who is talking about this?
Right. Kevin, I'll let you comment after that.
No, I'm with you. Look, as you were talking, I was Googling the Pantaleo. So it was 7 CCRBs. 2 of them for force. The other 5 were really.
I'm a fan.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Well, good. That's what I love. That's real talk, everybody. You see, we fact checking the fact checker. That's what we gonna fact check this with. That's what it is. Pamela's gonna fact check Kevin, and Kevin gonna fact check everybody. This is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host Kevin Branzetti, and we have Pamela Monroe in the building. Pamela she's gonna get her fact checking, and Kevin is gonna get his fact checking. Stephanie said also. She says, with the rise of shooting and gun crimes, what do you guys think? Okay, I did read that. You know, Pamela, you said something that I totally agree with you. And the sad thing is that the powers that be are not talking to the Kevins and the Bills. I don't know who they're talking to. They're talking to people that are I'm going out on the record and say they're talking to a lot of people that are saying yes. So some yes people. Because see, I'll say like okay, you want to change a person has to have 66 credits to be on the police force, and I feel like he needs to be 25 years or older, and he needs to have had a job for a certain amount of years, because that way you develop responsibility. You know, you may have started a family, and when you have something to lose, you are more inclined to be more cognizant of what you're doing. There are some law enforcement officers that are coming on this job, and Kevin can tell you he might have been one. Who knows? When you were young, you get on this job at 21 years old. You're not living by yourself. You're still living with mommy and daddy. And your job before that was Carvel and McDonald's. You understand what I'm saying? So the bottom line is, you come on this job, and all you heard is war stories, and your parents are telling you what you do and what you shouldn't do. And now you come on and you're working in these communities, and they're telling you, and see, this is my problem. We have to go back and start with almost detraining a whole mentality. We have to get people that are looking at people of color as not less than who they are. Like, I don't need. And Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know I ain't. I've seen the worst white officers be a certain way in the street. And when I say be a certain way, I'm talking about like within their scope of employment. Like they didn't go beyond it, but they could have been nicer, right? But then we can go to a bar, Rags or any bar, and they sing and bust the same rhymes better than me off that rap song, and drink that beer and bust that move and try to pop lock and like it was almost like my man in Hitch, Kevin so and so. He was like Q-Tip, you know what I'm saying, and try to rock it out. And you dancing and you singing and you rapping. I've seen the women do it and I've seen it all. But when they go out there on the street, it's like, yo, they're not black thin, or they don't like black thin. You understand what I'm saying? The same thing when I worked in corporate America. At the Christmas parties and certain parties, the women dancing and having fun, and the men are dancing and busting rhymes. The next day, they don't even speak to you. You're like, oh shit! Like, was that the same dude that was trying to do like a break dance? You know what I'm saying? The CEO of the company. You know what I'm saying? So I think we have to find a way to deprogram the mindset. It has to start at home, but
But is it even talked about in the academy when you guys are training? Is there talk about racism in the police, in systemic racism within the institution? Is that even a discussion? Is it even acknowledged?
Yeah, but the bottom line is people want to say, people are going to be politically correct. And the first and foremost, let me tell you something. When I was in the police academy, I don't know if I might have been, but something happened, or they might have brought up. I think I was in the academy around not George Floyd. Was it Rodney King? Well, I don't even know what year Rodney King was, but I'm like,
you might have been like
people of color. Yeah, only people of color speaking up. All the white officers was like, he was resisting arrest. The same thing with Desmond Robinson. Lord rest his soul. He got shot on a train in 1980 something. Because that punk cop, and I'll say it to his face, I'll say it to this day, and I don't care if you know him or you like him, he was a punk. He had got robbed on the train with his girlfriend before this incident happened, and they took his gun. Now he's on a train, and he sees that this is where the color of the day came into existence. Desmond Robinson was a black transit officer. He was working, and he was chasing a suspect going through, and all he saw was a black guy with a gun, and he got up and shot Desmond in his back. If that's anybody can Google the story and tell me if I'm wrong or not. That's what happened, and that's when we got the color of the day, because the bottom line, it was like he was an off-duty officer, and he didn't know Desmond Robinson was on working, so all he saw was a black person with a gun. See, we are so trained to think that when we see a white person with a gun or a white person doing something, oh, white is right. We got to get out of that mentality. And that's no disrespect to Kevin, but it's facts. It is.
I'm not disrespected.
No, but I'm just saying.
I know what you mean, though.
Yeah, but the bottom line is, white is right for so long, and then we have a lot of white officers losing that power. You understand what I'm saying? Where you got officers. Let me tell you something. One time there was 1 month I made 8 felony arrests, and I had white officers come up to me and ask me, how many arrests you got for the month? They're whispering. It was felonies. They fell in my lap. And these guys that graduated with Kevin, and I call the names. I don't say, they ain't kicking my ass, or I say what I say. So the bottom line is, they were like, yo. Then all of a sudden, another arrest comes up one day, and the guy tries to steal it. Then he's like, yo, Bill, I'm sorry. Can I have it? I was like, yeah, it was your post. It was my job over the radio. I said, you can have it. I was tired. I already had 8 for the month. Like they were falling in my life. And Kevin knows this. You work in a sector. It is what it is. They come over, you take them. Some things are must arrest. But the bottom line is, I saw back then how white officers, and I like the white officers. Don't get me wrong. I like them to this day. I just saw that it is a competition. Like I didn't know I was in a competition with you guys. You understand what I'm saying? But in the next breath, I've had a white sergeant kick me and my partner out of a car because He wanted his people. So there's a mentality within the police department that civilians will never understand. And if I'm wrong, Kevin, correct me now. Let's dispute it.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of strange things. There's a lot of the good old boys, and good old boys is whoever's in charge, and it's their boys. And you could be a different color, you could be the same color. If you ain't their boys, you ain't their boys. I've worked in places and I wasn't their boys, and did I get disrespected and treated badly? Yep. I have had incidents where I've had fights with supervisors over things. It just happens. It's part of it. It's not perfect. We're far away from perfect. Your question about the academy, they teach cops to be Boy Scouts in the academy. They do. They really teach. You have to be perfect. You can't, if another cop does something wrong, you have to tell. They teach this. Believe me, they push it in the academy that, if you see a cop doing something wrong, it's your responsibility to, stop it. It's your responsibility to report it. They push that in the academy from beginning to end.
Integrity in academy is the one place. Let me interject. Yeah, the academy is the one place where integrity is held to the highest of standards. The highest of standards. I just want to read what Chuck says. And Pamela, how long more do we have you? How many more minutes do we have you?
Let's go.
We don't go past 2 hours, but if you have to go, let us know. We'll finish
I can hang for what is it? We got 23 more minutes till 9. So
you have that. Thank you. I appreciate you. I apologize. I just want to read what Chuck says. He says, I honestly believe that any civilian who wishes to understand the culture of law enforcement attend the Civilian Police Academy. If it still exists or is still provided after the pandemic is under pandemic is under control. I believe that would help bridge some gaps with law enforcement and the community. Maybe they should be mandatory or civilians who wish to be a part of the process. It has helped in the past. Pamela, you wrote in. I think she wants to have a talk with you, Kevin. We're going to have this discussion.
I'm on the same. I was just going to text her, but it's going to be quicker this way. Pam, I'm on the same exact thing. Think progress. It's where I went. Okay. And I think you're looking at the wrong thing. The left column has the complaint number, and there are some complaints where there are multiple allegations. So it's 3 or 4 items being said he did within one complaint. Mm-hmm. So it's, and I believe the last complaint is the Eric Gartner, right? Like that. I believe that's the last complaint and what they fired him on. So it's 7 above that one. And if you look at the left-hand column complaint number, it's 7 CCRB numbers. There's just some that have 2 or 3 allegations. He was discourteous and he did a bad frisk. There are multiple things within the same complaint for the same incident.
Okay, so 7 complaints, and within that, a total of 14 individual allegations. Yeah. And then only 4 were substantiated. And so the problem,
which is actually high.
It is
Bill
high.
Just told you. Bill told you. I've gotten CCRB. Didn't do it. Bill's didn't do it. It happens. You're going to get a certain percentage that, I'm sorry, Pamela, sometimes you weren't even there. I was, Bill he told you he was the black guy that was working with the white guy. So they gave him, I was the redheaded guy. There was 3 other redheaded guys in the precinct, right? One of us was getting it kind of thing. Like it could be that. It could be, I've had one where I was accused of, the defendant stuck up for me, where I was accused of punching a guy during an arrest and beating him up, and somebody from the crowd went to the precinct and filed the complaint against me. The defendant went to CCRB and actually stuck up for me. It was a well-bought pizza that night, and I'm very happy I treated him well and bought him dinner, because when he went down, he said, the guy never hit me, But I have a complaint on file that says unsubstantiated. If you're a working cop, you're going to get CCRBs. It is the nature of the business. It is, in other places, if you worked, I don't know what you did before your acting career, but if you worked in a store, you're going to get a customer who's just going to make a complaint against you. I worked in a store for years before I was a cop. You got complaints. People just wanted certain things. It didn't mean they were right.
Right.
But you're going to get a couple. Just it'll happen.
And we know
now,
that
if you see a large pattern.
Some cops tout how many complaints they get. It's a good thing. You know, that's the culture too. You know, you ain't got no CCRBs.
Well, Steph, Pamela.
Yeah, I mean that's
Pamela, you're totally right with that, because active cop.
Sure.
And Kevin, you know this, and Pamela's totally right with this. Active cop would take CCRBs as a badge of honor. Yeah, I'm out here, I'm working, I'm out here putting my life on the line, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Yeah, but you just cursed out, somebody for no reason. You know what I'm saying? Or you did certain things. And, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know a lot of officers getting CCRBs for the arrest they made unless they violated somebody's rights. Like, I know the CCR, I've only had 2 in my career. The one I had where a guy, sued the police department because he felt like I falsely arrested him. He ended up winning because he took it to trial and he won. But the bottom line, and I was in Snoop Kev at the time. I don't even know if you were there. You might have been on vacation or something. And he took it to trial and he won. But when he won, and when they went down to CCRB and they were going to pay him out, he was in jail for the same thing that I arrested him for, plus carrying a gun. So you know what I'm saying? The bottom line is, you take it to trial.
You're going to get sued. The city paid out money on me. The city paid out money on Bill for lawsuits. If you sue the city, you're going to get money. It's kind of a sad standard, and this is why this other law scares the bejeeber out of us, is because Bill and I would be sued. We'd lose our own financial money.
Well, then that's where police need to be like, so what, train us, give us what we need,
I'm with you on that. And your stance at the moment is, well, I'm waiting for the cops to stand up and ask for it. But I'm standing up and asking for it, right? Bill's standing up and we're asking for it. I don't want to wait anymore. I don't have a mayoral ear. I don't have city councilman's ear. So I get out here every week with Bill and we talk and we try to discuss things and we try to throw IT. We've had Eric on and we threw some things at Eric and we'll see where it goes. And we made it, Eric even think about some stuff.
And Shay doesn't show up to a lot of stuff. And
I'm sure Shay, Shay's in a tough spot, right? Like I am sure Shay shows up to far more. Like I don't think that guy goes home, right? And I knew, one of the previous commissioners personally. He didn't go home. They just, they're expected to do a lot. They have an inner circle, and unfortunately, the inner circle. Where we have time to sit back and ponder these things and shoot the breeze and come up with ideas, and we come up with lists of them. We don't have the right idea. So I'll sit and talk with you. I'll talk to everybody. There are some weeks this goes very well for me, and Bill will tell you there are some weeks, I got to duck and go, gotta go, and run out of here, right? Like people, if they could throw things at me through Facebook, they would. They throw darts verbally, but I'm going to come back every week because that's my city that I grew up in. And I do bleed blue. I will always bleed blue. But to me, bleeding blue means I am a cop and I stand for what a cop is supposed to be. Right. And I believe most cops are that because that's what I saw in my career. And those are my friends. Have I seen bad cops? Yes. Have I seen cops that disgust me? Are there cops I watch, and Bill talks about it a lot, on Facebook who say the most violent, stupidest things? Yeah. And my answer to that is, we should do more stings against, cops. If a cop is disrespectful, you punish him. If he's disrespectful a few times and it's time to let him go, let him go. I got no issue with that. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, I wouldn't work with that cop. But I'll go back to my thing earlier of, when I was a rookie, though, I got no say on who I work with. Mm-hmm. And that is what, again, I'll keep pushing this.
You don't, yeah.
It is so important who we put our rookies with. It is incredibly vital. It is the most important position in the police department by far. And it takes a year, 2 years to get a class of rookies trained. And if you let rookies out with, I don't even want to say the man's name. Is it Chauvin?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. And we're going to talk about
learn from him, and we train another generation improperly, right? That position should be the most guarded position in any police department, because once you have that position at a level of, you have a smart, level-headed, good cop. Cop's going to put their hands on people. He could have a few CCRBs. She can have a few CCRBs. She can have an allegation in her career. That doesn't mean you're a bad cop. But you have that, and we have established that. What do we have? 70-something precincts and PSAs and transit. You have that established. You start to change generations and move things forward, right? Because those young cops learn properly.
Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host, Kevin Branzetti, and our special guest, Miss Pamela Monroe, in the building tonight. She is breaking down, giving us some science, doing what she does, and out here trying to make change, and we applaud her for everything that she's doing. I'm just going to read a couple of comments, and then I want to go into the trial. Pamela, have you been watching the trial?
Oh, my God. Every day it's riveting. I can't, I've cried every day watching it, every day.
Exactly. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I'm the opposite, Pamela. I can't watch it.
And we're going to talk about that. Yeah. So I just want to read some comments because Kevin, you said something that was very important about putting trained officers with their training officers. And right now I have to commend. I had a great training officer. Shout out to Dennis Gonzalez. We don't agree, as I've seen through Facebook, that we don't agree on political parties and things that magnitude. And I'm my own man, and I would never disrespect him because he was like the big brother when I came on his job. After he trained me, we end up working in the same unit, and stuff like that. But when I started seeing what you saw putting on Facebook, I don't co-sign that shit, and I'm a different animal. You know what I'm saying? But one thing is, I came on this job a little older than a lot of people like Kevin. I was in my late 20s, where a lot of times I was already a man. I had already had two careers, but this was the career that I chose to finish up with. And who knows, I might not finished up here if an acting career would have popped off or something like that. But the beautiful thing about it is I drove the bus. I already worked for the mayor's office under Koch and Dinkins administration. So when I came into law enforcement, I was already Bill Forster. And I have a problem with a lot of times with these officers that come on the job. I understand when Kevin says he bleeds blue to a certain degree. And I say I understand it to a certain degree. But there are some officers, when I ask them all the time, like, who are you? And you talk about you bleed blue. Like, that's almost like you put the blue ahead of your ethnicity or the blood that runs through your veins. And I don't get that.
Or the way you were raised,
And that goes back to what I said earlier about changing, so we can sit here and change laws and rules and everything. But if you're still going home and you still have the same racist ideology or the thought process that makes you who you are, then it's not going to change. And let me tell you something. There's things going on here right now that, Pamela, you are not even privy to. Kevin and I are, that officers out here talking about don't do anything, make the community suffer, and understand that they need us more than we need them. Let me tell you something. It is a sick mentality that people out here honestly really think like it's us against them. And Kevin knows what I'm saying is true. The cops have this mentality, it's us against them. That's why when Blue Lives Matter came, it became more prevalent when law enforcement, when Black Lives Matter came. And I also want to get your take on that, Pamela, and then we're going to talk about George Floyd. But let me just read these comments real quick because I see Vanetta just chimed in. I see Diana Hayes. I see Kevin Graves is in the building. Pastor Graves, he's in the building. Pastor Graves and I are here. It's usually the last Monday of every month, and we have our spiritual talk. So shout out to him for chiming in tonight. Stephanie said she had a question. I just want to go back to it. She asked about what do y'all think about the shooting of somebody. Kevin, if you see it, or Pamela, if you see it, pick it up. Let's see. She says, let's see.
Nika Holbert. She's asking
yes.
about, and I'll well, yeah, go to the rest of them. I'll look it up, Bill, and
look it up because I
there's a video we can play.
I don't. Yeah. If it's a video, we can play because that's one thing, Pamela. We do play our videos. We'll show something. Vanetta said, "Hey, Kevin, haven't been on for the month, so I have a private parental client normally, but she had her baby. Okay, so that's good, Vanetta. I'm glad you was able to get that maternity, pre-maternity money. You know what I'm saying?" Vanetta said, "Yes, Kevin, we would throw darts at you and stuff like that." She said, Vanetta said, Stephanie said, "I'll throw at him too. She'll throw tomatoes at you. She ain't gonna throw no darts." Vanetta said, "The bad cops made it bad for the good cops who are trying to be good." Shout out to Diana Hayes in the building, former NYPD officer. Did her time too in Harlem in the PSA family. Vanetta said she can't watch it too. Blue before humanity, not good. Exactly. Our taxes pay them. Shaking my head. Diana said the union is just
the uniform.
That. Yeah, exactly. Jesse King, what's up? Shout out to my martial arts brother, Jesse King in the building. Thank you, brother. We'll be doing some martial arts shows, and I will be interviewing you. So I just wanted to let you know. I hit you with that on the low. Kevin said there's no defunding law enforcement officers who display a blatant disregard human life. Diana said, "I am who I am without the uniform. The uniform just make me more aware of my surroundings." Absolutely, just called us a tactical thing. Pamela, give me your take on Blue Lives Matter and Black Lives Matter.
I feel like like you said, I didn't know there was a BLM, Blue Lives Matter. I mean, I've heard of the Blue Wall of Silence, but I had never heard of Blue Lives Matter until Black Lives Matter came up. And, again, it's like I said, there are some cops who believe that there's no such thing as police misconduct. That's a phantom word. That word that's not even possible. You can't have too much force. What do you mean abuse of force, police misconduct? That's not even open for discussion. And that's what Blue Lives Matter is about. We have to discuss it. And so this whole Blue Lives Matter, that created the division. Instead of being like, let me listen to what my citizens who I'm charged to protect and serve are saying. I get blue lives. I get police have a hard job. I get it. But when your citizens are trying to talk to you and say something to you, your charge is still to the community. It's not to your fellow officer, it's to the community. If you see someone out there in the field abusing somebody, your job is to protect that person. That's your job. It is not the Blue Lives Matter chant you need to be saying. You need to be saying, yo, you can't kill this person. What are you doing? It's not like Blue Lives Matter, step back, step back, step back. No, people getting it twisted. They're forgetting that they're not there for blue lives. They're there for the citizens. Those lives. Those are the lives that matter.
Absolutely. Kevin, what's your take? Or do you have one?
Oh, I have one.
I know you do. That's why I said it.
So I'm going to disagree with you and say that Blue Lives Matter didn't cause the division. Both sides did, is going to be my argument in this.
Are you a Libra?
You're also saying, like, and Billy,
so
we've had this discussion on like, who is Black Lives Matter? Where's their card? Who are they? And it's hard to say who they are. So there are good people, great people, and bad people who use Black Lives Matter.
Whoa,
Right?
whoa, wait a minute.
But it was created to deal with police accountability.
Agreed. But there have been people who are at Black Lives Matter protests screaming about Black Lives Matter who have assaulted cops, who have killed.
But Kevin, do we know? No, they ain't killing anybody, so don't say that. But do we know?
We've had cops killed at the protests. Absolutely.
We just had cops killed on January 6th, and nobody said anything about it.
I think a lot of people said something. And January 6th has produced the most arrests of any protest, I think, ever. Right? Like they've locked up over. After the fact, it's 300 plus people at this point have been.
But meanwhile, they were allowed to run wild over the state capitol, over the Capitol.
I will disagree with you on allowed to run wild. They overran the cops there. That's management's fault. The cops there weren't.
Oh my God!
Why did they overrun the cops? Because no one put anything in place. So they were allowed. So it was
why did they overrun the cops, the police precincts out in the West Coast and take them over? Why did we lose buildings that were burnt down in other protests? It happened at protests. Cops get overrun. The cops there got overrun. Did the executives make a mistake with the manpower, the uniform of the day? No riot gear? 100% they did. And that's why they were dismissed immediately, right? The sergeant at arms, who was the head of security for the Capitol, and the head of the Capitol Police were gone day one, within a day, gone. The executives made that mistake. The cops on the front line, I've argued this with Bill a whole bunch of times. Capitol Police did their job. For the most part, were there some bad ones? Were there some ones who did some things? Are there some videos that are questionable? Their job is to protect members of Congress. Not a single member of Congress was hurt. That's their job. That is what the Capitol Police's job is. That's their assignment in life. They're uniformed officers for the security.
It's not to protect. So let me ask you a question, Kevin.
That's their job.
When you're assigned to work at a building, you're assigned to protect that building too, correct?
But there's like I just said, there were lots of protests across this country where the cops lost the line. Lots of them. We lost a police.
You know, when you say that, you're trying to make it. You're trying to justify it because
I'm saying, look, the executives there. The executives there were wrong, and they put out the wrong.
So the executives that are wrong with the people protesting.
The executives were people protest and go to jail. But I've told you this. Every person who broke into the Capitol goes to jail. Every person who broke into the Capitol and has a weapon or a pair of flex cuffs on them goes to jail for a long time.
So, Kevin, let me ask you a question. Stay right there. You did not hear any Blue Lives Matter come out and speak against the protesters. And they killed cops, and it was white on white that time. Why is that?
I don't. Who are the Blue Lives Matter spokesmen? Just like you hit me with who are the Black Lives Matter spokesmen with their ID cards. See, the one thing about Blue Lives Matter spokesmen? I'm out speaking against it.
Well, you are, but see, but the bottom line is, you're speaking against the crime. You're not speaking against the people protesting. See, what I'm trying to say is that you throw in, they were wrong with Black Lives Matter and they was wrong with the protesting. No, see, the thing is, we know. Everybody knows, and this is what happens when people get annoyed. We all know that Black Lives Matter was infiltrated. We have found white people that have had the black face painted on them, and we've seen white.
Has happened. But
so wait a minute. Wait a minute. But the bottom line is, you can't say, well, yeah, there's Black Lives Matter, there's bad people on Black Lives Matter, when it wasn't the Black Lives Matter people that was doing it. See, when we talk about January 6th.
Yes, there was, Bill. So you can read some of the indictments. The woman who was indicted for throwing the Molotov cocktail at the cops in Queens. In the protest.
That was a white chick that lived upstate.
She was a white chick, and she was an infiltrator. She was not.
She was a lawyer.
She was not. She was there to support the Black Lives Matter movement.
Well, Black Lives Matter does not encourage that type of.
Of course, it doesn't. I'm not saying it does. I'm saying
you did when you implemented it.
No. I said they were good and they were bad in it. She's a bad in it. That's it.
But you're putting them together. You're lumping it together.
No. I'm not lumping them together. I'm saying there's
then
a whole bunch. There? How'd she get there?
If you didn't lump it together, I didn't lump it together. I didn't put it ass there. You put it there.
Yeah, I put it there. I'm confused.
So you put it there because you're lumping her together.
I'm not lumping everybody together. I'm saying there were different people at these things. Look, there's clearly people who at Black Lives Matter protests with screaming Black Lives Matter who did acts of violence.
But see, that's where you put the period. Let's say they were there at Black Lives Matter protests, but they weren't supporting the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah, there was some of those too. But are you telling me?
Okay. So we're going to agree to disagree. We're going to agree to disagree on that one.
Is your stance that everybody who did an act of violence at a Black Lives Matter movement was an infiltrator?
Yes, or they were antagonizers. Let me tell you something. Do you tell? I can sit here. Hold on, Kevin. I'm going to answer your question. Do I think those people breaking in the cars and breaking in the stores, looting, do I think that they were Black Lives Matter supporters? Absolutely not.
No, this is also a section there that was just criminals taking advantage of a scenario.
So wait a minute.
There's criminals taking advantage of there's a mixture, Bill.
So wait a minute.
But you can't tell me there's no Black Lives Matter supporters.
We're agreeing for a second there. If you agree with that, then you can't say this person did that and this person did that. Because if you agree that the criminality mentality took over in certain spots, then they weren't there to support Black Lives Matter.
No, there's still different people. I gave you an example. The woman who got arrested and indicted for throwing Molotov cocktail, she was there to support blacks. Read her indictment.
No, but wait a minute. She was there in lieu of and acting like she was infiltrating. Let me tell you something. If you were there talking about I'm supporting Black Lives Matter and then you start doing malicious stuff, then you're not there enough for Black Lives Matter.
Well, then there are people in DC who can make that same argument.
You are a damn lie. Ain't nobody can say no shit like
people
that.
People who were there to protest and did not break into the Capitol can say that.
Yes, if you didn't break into the Capitol.
They could say everybody who broke in is not part of this protest. They're infiltrators.
No, you can't say that, Kevin. You can't say that.
And I know I can't because I wouldn't say it. I'm just using that to say can't.
So Kevin Graves says there's video footage of Capitol police officers allowing terrorists to enter the Capitol building. And I was thinking of that too.
Yeah. And I said not every cop there was doing a good job. They, as a department overall, they did what they were supposed to do, which was protect Congress.
Let me say this, and then we're gonna read some comments. And thank you, Pamela, for reading comments. You fell right into the Real Talk Chronicles host aspect. Let me say this: law enforcement got ripped a new ass for kneeling with Black Lives Matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Got called less than anything besides a child of God. There was officers that took selfies with people that breach the Capitol, and nobody says anything wrong or disrespectful about them.
Lots of people say things are wrong, disrespectful. I don't know how you could say that. Nobody says. We know the universe. What people say. That's
what I'm saying. Listen.
I will tell you this.
When I say anybody says something wrong, I'm talking about blue lives.
Let's see the long-term aftermath. Right, the Capitol. What's going on first? Though all those arrests are being made, like I said, they're well over 300 right now, and they're still coming. And there's 300 and they're still coming. I'll leave it at that. The bosses, the two highest executives on both ends, dismissed, gone. The cops who were there, the ones who did something wrong, let's see as the time progresses, we'll see as they get fired. It's going to happen.
Kevin, they should have been fired already. Let me tell you something.
No cop gets fired on the spot for that.
We understand that. But let me tell you something. First, we got a man that doesn't even denounce what he did. So, I mean, the bottom line is he's being sued by two law enforcement officers. He's being sued by two law enforcement officers right now of color that's saying they got called racial epithets and spat at and all kind of other shit. So the bottom line is, they're suing him personally because he's an asshole. Let me just say, let me read some of these comments real quick.
Oh, I'm sure it lit up after this.
Pamela or Kevin, can y'all read something? I took my glasses off and I sure don't want to put them back
I lost my glasses today, so I'm in a bad spot.
Here we go.
Okay, well, let's go back. Okay.
Let me go back.
JC, don't start at JC. JC, JC Nieves says double standard on they did their job at the Capitol. Vanetta says the point you're missing, Kevin Branzetti, is that we're protesting for a cause of the abuse of us by cops. The insurrection was about racial white people believing a lie and overran the Capitol. Oh yeah, tell him V. Also,
to me, a protest is a protest. Everybody's allowed to protest. Idiots are allowed to protest. Once it gets violent, you go to jail.
So you're just talking about black and white on.
My stance has never changed on that, Bill.
Okay.
I don't care what protest it is. Everybody's allowed. Morons are allowed, and good people are allowed to protest.
She says the cops were ready for the Black Lives Matter protest and not insurrection. They ran over us. They ran us over and abused us at the Barclays Center for no reason. Kevin Graves said there's video footage of Capitol Police. Thank you, Pamela. You read this. She said there's video footage of Capitol Police allowing these terrorists to enter the Capitol building. Absolutely. Colin said, Kevin. You're a bit confused tonight. Exactly. Kill him, Colin. Vanetta said I was at 10 protests, and some of the ones that I was, police started it, and not the Black Lives Matter movement. Hey, now.
I don't doubt
Stephanie said, dang, y'all forgot about a Nikki Holbert question. Well, let's get to Nikki Holbert real quick as I read the rest of these comments. John Mills, if Capitol Police weren't fired, would have fired some shots like that when one woman tried to enter. They were the congressman. Hold on, let me start for this. If Capitol Police would have fired some shots like they would, that woman tried to enter the congressman, we would have seen people in Speaker Pelosi's office. We wouldn't have seen people in Speaker Pelosi's office. If that was Black Lives Matter storming the Capitol, shots would have been fired. Absolutely. Like Vanetta said, you know that, Kevin. You know that. Let me tell you something. You just said.
If them was all black faces out there, are you kidding me?
Well, I'm going to argue that with you, and I've argued with that one before. And here's my argument. In the last 12 months of protests, how many black people, brown people were shot and killed by cops at protests?
We weren't storming Capitol buildings.
How many white people were killed?
And
unarmed. She's an unarmed woman killed. I'm not saying they're wrong shooting her. So when I hear the argument that if they were black protesters coming through the building, they would have been shot. Well, Black lives protesters stormed plenty of buildings, and we lost several things. We lost a police precinct was overtaken, and people weren't shot and killed. You know? So I don't,
Now, first, let me say this.
There's an unarmed person shot and killed.
Let me tell you something. They should have never let the precinct go.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Bill.
They should have never. But bottom line is, damn the precinct in lieu of the Capitol. The Capitol is where we making laws, and that's where our judicial system is at.
Bill, and I'm with you on the Capitol. I'm still with you on, right? Like,
so
but the bottom line is everybody there goes to jail.
But
let me tell you something. If they would
over, did they break into the police precinct? What does that mean?
Completely took it over.
They were all up inside of it and
occupied
letting prisoners go.
No, they occupied the police precinct was occupied by the protest. The cops withdrew. They took over the building. It was physically their building for a set period of days. They owned the building.
I don't know where I was, where I missed all of that.
No, you can look it up, Pamela. They did it, but the bottom line is, shame on them for letting that shit happen.
I'm
but also too, we didn't have a president of the United States at the time tell him to take over the precinct. He told him to take over the Capitol. He did tell him to do that. Let's go to Stephanie's question. I know we can come back, Pamela. You're always welcome to come back. I don't want to go past this time. Vanetta said
we already passed the time.
I know, but I'm sorry, but she was killed.
Pamela, we always pass the time. Bill promises every week we're going to stop at 2 hours.
But you know what's so funny? That's the whole thing about Real Talk Chronicles. We get it in, and sometimes real conversation can't stop like that. But let's talk about. Did you look up the lady for Stephanie real quick so we can talk about her, and then we can close out, because the bottom line is I don't have any knowledge on the lady she's talking about?
Yeah, it's not a good one. Well, all right. Let me share my screen.
Okay. Pamela, we're going to share the screen. We're going to talk about this real quick, and then we out of here. Go ahead, Kevin.
Because I think, somebody, whoever it was, has been asking for this for like 3 weeks.
Stephanie. Yeah, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Let's
so
see. Ready?
Definitely. I'm ready.
A new uncut video of the shootout between Metro Police Officer Josh Baker and Nika Holbert. Our Hannah McDonald shares the video and reports on the officer's decision to search her bag, although she was not his target.
Is anybody in there with you?
For the first time, we're hearing Nika Holbert and Officer Josh Baker meet face to face on Friday. This is the uncut footage from the officer's body camera. It shows Holbert giving him her non-driver ID card and explaining the car she's in is no longer Damon Buchanan's, who Baker thought he was pulling over.
Where's he at?
I have no idea.
Is there anything illegal in here I need to know about?
Weed.
Where's that at?
After spending a few seconds leaned over into the car, Baker asks Holbert to stop.
Just bring your bag out here.
Okay.
Ma'am, stop going through it.
We need to know the backstory.
Was this investigation of Holbert deserved? We asked our legal expert. Although the officer expected to face a man with 6 outstanding drug warrants, believing drugs are in this car with this woman gives an officer the right to investigate, says attorney Nick Leonardo.
In this case, you walk up to the vehicle, you're looking for a male. There's not a male there, but when you approach the vehicle, you see a firearm or a weapon, or you see drugs in plain view. And at that point in time, you would have a duty as a police officer to conduct, further investigation.
The police video shows the officer finding what the department says was marijuana and a powdery substance. And then when Baker tries to handcuff Holbert, a struggle that's hard to watch. Still, the video that police published has been viewed more than 2 million times on YouTube.
People are starting to pay a lot of attention to this body camera footage all over America, determine what can be done to better, to have better encounters between the police and its citizens, and what is being done wrong, quite frankly.
Every bit of video would also come into play in court if that is where this ends up. In Nashville, Hannah McDonald, News Channel 5.
I think there's a better video of
The
this.
Tennessee Bureau of Investigation.
My
is still looking
apologies,
into the
because
case, but it will ultimately
I think
be
they have a video of the actual shooting. Yeah. No, there's a video of the shooting. Because the title of this one, and I should have looked at it fully. It's hard to view these things while we're talking. Because the title was the complete video. I thought it had the complete video, but yeah, she shot.
And she was killed for running.
She has a gun.
She has a gun, but what's so funny? First and foremost,
I didn't see a gun.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah. She did have a gun. I heard. Now the story comes back to light. I do remember the story. First and foremost, what the commentator was saying is that the officer didn't find the drugs in plain view, or he didn't find the gun in plain view. So what happened was, in lieu of was looking for another suspect, he ran across her. Do we say good police work or bad police work?
So it's a good stop, right? Like, they ran the plate. It's got warrants. They stopped the car. It's still in this guy's name. So him questioning her, saying, "Do you know him? Where is he?" That's all reasonable to me, right? Like that's.
Go ahead.
And it's his car. She asked if she had drugs in the car. She said yes.
Right.
Go
ahead. Go ahead.
No, he's now going to place her under arrest.
No, that's not what happened. He brings her out the car. He has more Q&A with her.
Yeah.
And then he was going to place her under arrest for whatever reason. Now the bottom line is, she starts to run away. He has his gun drawn. Why does he has a gun drawn on a woman in fucking flip-flops, Kevin? I mean, come on, man.
Wasn't she sucking a lollipop?
No, she was smoking a cigarette.
No.
I will go back to, we don't use these well. Would she have been a fight bill and pain in the butt to cuff? Yep. But you use your hands.
And he couldn't face her.
And it goes haywire. And I've seen this. We've seen this with cops. When you pull your gun out, you put yourself in that scenario of, I got my gun out, and then the person starts to move. You hope when you pull your gun out and the person freezes, puts their hand behind their back, and it's over. That's what the cops hope. But when they don't, you got to put your gun away.
What we're going to do. Kevin, if you can't find another video.
Oh, I got another one.
You got another one? Okay, we're going to show the other video.
I do not want to see this woman get shot.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead, run it, Kevin.
Does she have a gun? All right, let's watch it. Oh my God.
Give me a moment. I'm just letting it.
And let me just say this before we say this. Pamela, it's a pleasure having you tonight. We are so appreciative of what you're doing and things of that magnitude. And let me just say this, you're more than welcome to come back anytime you want to sometimes. Now, how about that?
I would be happy to. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I think we've dialogue.
And Pamela, good luck with what you're doing. I do respect it, and I do wish you a world of success with it.
Thank you. And I wish, I wish everybody get what they need, so that everybody can just be happy with living in this world.
Absolutely. So we're going to try to show this video, and then we're going to bring this topic up again. I don't even know who's on next week. We have some guest people. We said everybody's guest, and Pamela, if you want to, you can check your schedule for April 6th. Alicia told me she can't do April 6th. So if you want to come back, and I'll ask Gina if she wants to come back April 6th.
Oh, I would love to be there with my girl. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to see if we can get Gina to come, because I know she had something to do. So we get both of you to come back, and then you ready? Kevin, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right.
You got.
Oh my God.
Put the gun down! Put the gun down! 22 shots fired! Shots fired! Just bring your bag out here. Ma'am, stop.
So it's going backwards to the beginning now.
Step right back here. What did you take out of it?
Nothing. I was
okay. All right, listen. Just come back here. I think we're getting off on the wrong foot, okay?
Because I'm really confused on why I'm getting shot.
He's got several warrants.
Okay, that has nothing to do with me.
You don't know who's in the car.
Nobody's in my car.
Well, now I know that. However, now I'm going to address the other problems.
Okay, so you want my bag and all my belongings.
So just step right back here.
Can I use the restroom?
And let you know this is being audio and video recorded, just to let you know.
Okay.
So it's just in here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was there...
Well, about 5 minutes.
Is this... Yeah, I'm not done with that though. Where's your lighter at?
13. It says you're about 7 minutes away.
I'll get it for you in a second, okay?
It's Dewey Drive,
right there in your...
at the Dollar General. Can I have you start from 23?
You scaring me.
Thank you.
So she shoots him too.
Here, do me a favor, turn.
No, hold
Turn
on.
around.
Don't put me in handcuffs. I haven't done anything wrong.
Ma'am.
No, don't put me
You're about to get paid. No. Get down. Get down on the ground. Down on the ground.
No. I didn't do nothing.
Step out. Ma'am, put the gun down.
Oh, we lose the video.
Put the gun down. 22 shots fired. Shots fired.
She shot him.
Ma'am, put the gun down. Put the gun down. 22 shots fired. Shots fired.
10-4, 13, keep at that code 3.
There's the gun being thrown out of the car. Is that the gun?
23, I'm hit.
That's his gun, no?
No, his gun's right here. Hers,
Right.
I believe that was hers. That's his. That's her. But she shot him too. It's not what you expect. Pulling over a woman,
Right?
Well, not what I expected out of that video.
So are we talking about a bad apple?
Buffering.
Are we talking about a bad apple? Are we talking about a situation that goes wrong? What do you think? Because
did he? So we
talk
talked about. So we saw a little bit more this time. The stop is still good, right? His questioning her, all fine. She gave up. She had drugs. It's weed. He was searching her bag. There's some more. He tells her she's going to be under arrest. She starts to run around the car. Do I think at that point he should have been able to, grab her, tackle her, and let's get the cuffs on, and we're going to get a little bloody? Yeah. Did he know she had the gun in the bag at that point? I don't know.
Did she have it in the bag or did she have it in the car? Because if he searched the bag,
I'm reading some articles in here about, maybe in the bag, maybe not. I don't know. If he searched the bag with the gun and gave it back to her, he royally effed up. But I don't know.
You really want to say shame on him, but you're not going to say it. I know you do.
Oh, no, I'm going to say absolutely shame on him. Bill, okay. If you gave somebody a gun, I got no issue with Monday morning quarterbacking a cop on that one. If you gave the person back their gun, and no, he tried. He went to taser, and I don't think he was wrong tasing her. She got in the car. She was getting the keys out to start the car. How do you stop and pull her out? He tased her.
Let me tell you something.
That like a champ.
I say this all the time. I'm tired of seeing people get tased and still nothing happens to them once they get tased. That means to me that the tasers do not have enough voltage, as they say. They're just. I said this, and Pastor Graves is commenting. I said this before, that I think tasers are a prelude to shoot, because that's the next line. It's like mace, asp, taser, then gun. You know what I'm saying? Like, the bottom line is, when you tase somebody, and all of it, what is it? Really just like a little electricity just playing with them? Because everybody that we've seen, Kevin, that we do these videos, we've seen that the taser didn't do anything to them. So now what happens is a person, here we go, we have a person that tases somebody, and his next level is to pull out a gun when there's not a gun involved. Now,
there's not a gun involved. She had a gun.
Wait, I'm not talking about this scenario. I'm talking about other scenarios. We're talking about Mr. Blake in Philadelphia. They haven't found a gun in his car. He got shot 7 times in the back, and they tased him, right? And 3 officers couldn't kick his ass. So let's, when I say that, that's what I'm talking about, that scenario. Yeah, she did pull out a gun, right? He let her get back in the car. That's fucked up, right? But the bottom line is, now see, this is where, and Pamela, I'm going to ask you this before we close out. If you'd have ran up to her and punched her in her mouth and knocked her ass on the ground, people would have been hollering, "Oh, yo, he hit a woman in the fucking face," right? But then, with that being said, she's not shot, he's not shot, and we would have found a gun in the car, right? What's your take on that?
Again, abusive force is somebody who has already been subdued, and now you're going overboard.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. So, he asked her to do some things. She decided to run because she didn't want to go to jail. She had an illegal substance. I imagine that's what happens when you have an illegal substance. I don't walk around with illegal substances. I assume that's what happens. If I got caught with a bag of cocaine, I'm assuming that's illegal and I'm going to jail for it. So she ran because she didn't want to get locked up. He couldn't catch her.
I'm gonna keep my comments to myself about why he couldn't catch her. But again,
it's the elephant in the room. We all saw.
But again, I want our police departments to be on point in every aspect. And that's something that's what when I'm talking about reimagining the police. I want people to be trained and fit and all of that. You know, I want them to be like, yo, the police in the USA, yo, they like Navy SEALs, whatever. That's another topic. He couldn't catch her. She got in the car and she pulled a gun. I understand why she pulled the gun, because she didn't like getting tased. But you pull a gun on a cop, you know what's going to happen. Everybody does that.
Now, Pamela, I want to throw, and this is like, this one, it's fairly easy, right? There'll be people who say he could have and shouldn't have and whatever. This one's fairly easy. But what happens in that scenario? She had drugs. She said no. And let's say she has no gun.
But wait a minute. She had weed.
She had weed and marijuana.
No, but it's a crime where
she had a white powder.
It was white. There was, Pamela got it. There's white powder and the weed. So there's two items. They just think about it. But if when we were on the job, Bill, and as of yesterday, weed was an arrestable thing, and we were to arrest. The arrest is fine. She's refusing, right? If he did tackle her, if he did throw a punch to the back of her head when they went down to get her hands behind her back, would that have went over well?
No, absolutely not. That's what I said, Kevin.
Yeah.
I said there's a lose-lose in this situation.
Yeah.
If he
it's tough for us as a man fighting a woman. Like, we're in a real tough scenario when she says no.
Now you're totally right with that. But see, this is the skinny of this shit. We always talk about that. What would have happened if that was a white woman? See, we always talk about that. We forget about that elephant in the room. That what he did, he's chasing a black woman around the car. Both of them fat, and he can't catch her. You know, both of them out of breath. That little run around up there, car to car, from door to door, he was out of breath. He had no choice but to taser his fat fuck. You know what I'm saying? And he couldn't do anything. And then the bottom line is she's out of breath. She getting in the car. So now her criminal element takes over. So she's just as bad. You understand what I'm saying? Where the bottom line is, he was letting her dig through her bag in the first place. If you really thought that she was that criminal or that person, I'd have pulled out the car and closed the door, right? Then if we'd have got the ID, one thing he did tactically, he said, stop looking through your bag. Okay, but now he's letting her get on the phone. She's smoking cigarettes. And then now he's rambling through her bag. And Kevin, what did we do back in the day? We didn't ramble through somebody's bag. We dumped that shit on the car. You know what I'm saying?
He by himself.
Most cops in this country are by themselves.
But
and that's an element. Yeah, it's very difficult. And it's not just by themselves. Their backup is minutes away. It's a scenario Bill and I never really dealt with, right? We call for help. You're going to have 50 cops in a minute.
Yeah.
But you guys work together. You and Bill work together. So why was he
because most police departments are single man patrols.
Yeah, and then we're talking about towns. We're talking about towns in lieu of
state police. Most police departments across the country are single man patrols.
I don't think that makes sense.
I agree.
And you know what's so funny? With that being said, we're going to talk about so Pamela, try to get you and Gina to come back for April 6th, if that works for you. And we're going to talk to Gina. Everybody with the comments, we rocking and chiming, but listen, we need to get out of here because we don't want Pamela not to come back. I want Kevin to stay, and I'm tired. This is Real Talk Chronicles. It has been a great show. We didn't even talk about the George Floyd situation. We'll talk about that again. Like I said, Pamela, you are always welcome to come back. Please continue doing what you're doing. I hope we've given you some insight as you have enlightened us. Thank you, everybody, for chiming in. Diana down here in Georgia, they ride by themselves. Absolutely. Vanetta, you said exactly. I see the cop was trying to be nice and not do the wrong thing or get shot. Kevin Graves said she was pulled over because the car that she was driving is registered to a drug dealer who she knows. Exactly. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. Kevin, give us some positive affirmation. No, Pamela, give us some positive affirmation. We always give positive affirmation before we sign off. Give us some positive affirmation, some words of anything, inspiration of. If Pastor Graves was here, he would pray us out, but he's not. And then Kevin closes out. Go ahead, please, Pamela.
We can reimagine, we can create the world we want to live in. We can do anything we want to do. And love is the most powerful force on this planet. And we just need to start thinking that way.
Thank you. Kevin?
Well, first again, Pam, thank you. I really appreciate it tonight. And I do appreciate the stuff that you're doing. And
Thank you.
Wish you the world of success.
Thank you.
And we wind up in the world you imagine. Everybody out there, I guess, well, it's one step forward. It's a small step. Everybody's got to take it. And it could be, Bill and I chose this as our path. And you guys, people saw, there are times me and Bill, we'll crash, we'll clash heads, we'll fight, we'll disagree. Bill will give me I know when I really hit him, how far he sways backwards. I measure, I didn't get a real good one today.
Yeah, tonight you got this one. Yeah.
I got that one, but I didn't get the full arm with it. So I didn't hit 100%. I hit like a 70 on the Richter scale. But that's fine.
Man.
We have these things. You have to be willing to talk to each other, because I swear in the end, we all want the same thing. We want to live safely and we want to be respected. And when we learn how to respect our neighbor, things will get better. So you don't have to be the one to change it all, but you can do change in small increments with your friends, your neighbors, the local cop or the local person, and who has the hot dog cart you walk past, and just saying hello and being friendly to them. Change is small sometimes. Good night.
That's awesome. I think next time Kevin and I will, Stephanie, for you, we will pick that conversation up with the next guest that's on. I think it's wait a minute. The next one is the 6th, right? That was supposed to be Alicia. She's not going to be. So Pamela, maybe that might be you and Gina if Gina can come on next week. Is the 6th. Well, we'll have you back, and what is the next week? The next Wednesday. Next Wednesday.
Oh, the 7th. Wednesday.
Okay, the 7th. Yeah. So at the 7th, if you can find out from Gina if she can come on, and we'll have you. Where'd you go? Where you going, Pamela? You know what I'm saying? And you two can come back if you want to, and we can talk about this. We can pick up on this topic, and we can talk about some other stuff. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. Thank you, appreciate you. We're out of here. Kevin, thank you. It's always a pleasure, brother. Everybody have a nice week and be careful, man.
Share it and like it.
There you go. Peace.